Hey, everybody, and welcome to Realty Success. I'm Brooke Bryant. I'm a realtor in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, and love working with clients of all types, but I really love working with first time home buyers. I wrote a book, it's not with me, it's called The Ultimate Guide for First Time Home Buyers. And we're super excited today. Like I said, I'm in the Charlotte area, and we have lots of real estate investors in our area. We're also experiencing some issues with inventory levels and affordable housing. So we've got a great show for you today. And so joining us, as always, is Angela Brown. Angela, welcome to the show.
Well, hi, and thank you so much for having me today. I am super excited to be here today. Every time I get to join one of these shows, I get so excited because I am the move in, move out cleaning part of the real estate transaction. And so without our realtors, no homes get purchased or sold. And so I'm really excited to be a part of this, and I love learning right alongside with you. So if you're joining us today or if you're watching the replay, I invite you to jump in on the comments. Also, you can leave your comments in the notes below. We will answer those questions, and I'm super excited about our guest today. Brooke, I will let you tell us about our guest today.
Thank you, Angela. I'm super excited to do so today. So joining us is Ashley Tison. Ashley is in the Charlotte area too. He's an attorney, professional speaker, and he's the founder of an organization called OZPros. So it's a full service opportunity zone advisory firm. Ashley will tell us all about that. He's worked in real estate, mergers, acquisitions, business growth and management, and he's going to, he uses all of that experience to help educate investors through these opportunity zones. So Ashley, welcome to the show. We are so excited to have you.
Well, I'm super excited to be on here. I think it's fantastic what you guys are doing. I love YouTube Live, and I love streaming into all of the different live, broadcast mechanisms. So it's fantastic to be here. Looking forward to educating you guys and your listeners slash viewers about opportunity zones. It's amazing to me. I've been eating, breathing, and sleeping opportunity zones since 2018. It's amazing to me that people out there still haven't really heard about them and understand them. So hopefully we can bring some clarity to that, so that people can kind of have another arrow in their quiver about how they can do really cool, creative real estate deals and save taxes along the way, and have some social impact as well.
Well, that's the great thing about real estate, right? There's just so many different ways to get involved and get invested and to have an impact on your community. So, like you said, so many people don't know what opportunity zones are. Can we start with you telling us?
So, opportunity zones were created by the Tax Cut and Jobs Act of 2017. And what Congress was trying to do was to take areas that had traditionally been underinvested in. So the areas that had kind of been left behind by the boom after the Great Recession, and that hadn't received those economic dollars, and they wanted to inspire private capital to go into those areas. So they said, listen, if you have any kind of capital gain, and that could be long-term, short-term, that could be from stocks, bonds, that could be from appreciated baseball cards, crypto, real estate, sale of a business. It doesn't matter. Any kind of capital gain, you put that into a qualified opportunity fund and you invest into these areas called qualified opportunity zones, then you get to defer that capital gain. And then whatever you invest into, if you hold that investment for 10 years, you're going to get a step up in basis to fair market value. And that's really significant for your savvy real estate investors that listen to your show, because it not only eliminates capital gains taxes, so that makes capital gains go away, but it also eliminates depreciation recapture. And so for your folks that are utilizing bonus depreciation and cost segregation studies, which we actively help our clients do, then when you go to sell, normally you get hit with picking up that income again. But in the case of an opportunity zone, you have zero depreciation recapture. Now, so effectively, Congress in 3 pages of legislation was able to get the attention of private capital, get private capital off the sidelines, and make it patient to get it to invest for 10 years. And so the Congress, when they did this, they wanted to give the ability to figure out which areas needed this investment. They wanted to put that in the hands of the states. And so they allowed the governors to designate up to 25% of their low-income census tracts as opportunity zones, which happened back in, I don't know, I think it was like April of 2018. And so all of the actual opportunity zone census tracts have been designated. If you want to find them, you can go to ozpros.com/map. And there's approximately 8,700 of them, like 8,733, I think. And they're all over the United States. We got rural ones, we got urban ones, we got basically the whole island of Puerto Rico is an opportunity zone. U.S. Virgin Islands has opportunity zone. Guam has them. Alaska, all over the United States. And it's kind of shocking too, is that these aren't necessarily like economically blighted areas. Just because it was a low-income census tract, according to the 2010 census, doesn't necessarily mean that it's a poor or derelict area. But what it does mean is that the governors saw potential for those census tracts and they wanted to encourage private investment to go in there. And so by designating these as opportunity zones, you get all of that tax benefit. And so we've seen a tidal wave of interest from the private investment community to the tune of around $150 billion, according to some estimates, which is mind-blowing that literally in 5 short years that, folks have gotten, they've understood this program and they've started rolling with investing, and they're actually making a difference in these zones. So it's really cool to see the effect of some legislation that actually was bipartisan, bicameral, and that's actually accomplishing what they set out to do. So that's what an opportunity zone is.
So if you were going to invest in an opportunity zone, how would you go about finding one?
Yeah. So the key is that you just got to figure out, you can literally go to our website, ozpros.com/map, and then there's a search function on there, and you can type in an address, and then if it comes up blue, then it's an opportunity zone. If it comes up yellow, it's not. And so those blue areas that are on the map, so you can zoom in if you want to, or you can type in and search. But if it comes up blue, that's a designated opportunity zone.
So are there residential opportunities and commercial opportunities?
So it's not just that. That's what's the really cool thing about the legislation is that, instead of like with 1031, you got to have a sale of real estate. So 1031 is what most people are kind of accustomed to relative to tax mitigation type stuff where you defer your taxes. But unlike 1031, you can have a gain from anything that's business, like I said, gold, crypto, whatever. And then you can take that gain and you can invest it into a fund. That fund can then invest into commercial. It can invest into residential real estate. It could invest into like wetlands mitigation banks, agricultural land. But then the really cool thing is that it can also invest into operating businesses. And so if you've got a business that you think could be operated inside of an opportunity zone, then you can set that up as a qualified opportunity zone business, bring in capital gains as the equity into that deal. And then after you sell that 10 years down the road, pay zero capital gains on it. So for your clients that have the next Facebook, do it in an OZ, and then you're not going to pay any taxes when you're the next Mark Zuckerberg.
So it sounds like the OZ is an opportunity where you can really expand your horizons. What if you're completely new to the concept? Like where would you go to get started as far as, hey, I would like to learn more about this and maybe set my business up as an opportunity zone?
Yeah. So, we have that question all the time, and we've tried to streamline it as much as possible. We more help people that are kind of there to set up at OZ Pros, but we've got a community called Ozworks Group. I partnered with a gentleman that's what he does is he sets up communities and co-working centers and all that kind of stuff. So we've effectively created like a virtual co-working center for opportunity zones. And it's been really cool to see how that community has taken shape. There's over 500 people in it now. And we've got videos. We've got, information relative to it. So it's like, if you want to start from zero, you can jump in there. It's absolutely free. And you can get, you could basically get to probably 301 or 401. If you want your PhD, then you need to come to OZPros.com. We've got a weekly group there called Ascent, where it's a mastermind of folks that are doing opportunity zone deals. We've got almost 100 people in that, and they're actively communicating and working with each other and getting their questions answered on a weekly basis. So one of the things that we wanted to do for your listeners is to set up some kind of special things for them that that other folks wouldn't be able to get. And so we set up a site, ozpros.com/realty success. And in that, there's an OZ assessment, right? Where you can, once again, you can dive into the world of opportunity zones by taking that assessment. In less than 3 minutes, you're going to have a clear and actionable OZ roadmap with personalized next steps. So that's one of the things that we wanted to offer your listeners. You can also get to Ozworks group through that link. And we'd love to get people into the opportunity zone community so that they can learn about it and figure out if this is something that could work for them and their business.
That's so great that you've streamlined the process like that. So I'm wrapping my head around it appropriately. So let's say I've got some money, inherited some money, and I want to get involved in opportunity zones. I'm not actually going out and buying an existing property. I'm investing into a fund.
No, so that's just it. We could absolutely, and that's, we've set up almost 1,000 opportunity zone funds, and most of them are captive opportunity zone funds for people that want to do their own deals. So if you have a capital gain, and that could be from inheriting, right? So you could have inherited your grandma's house. When you inherit that house, you've got grandma's basis, which is basically like $10. And now it's worth $1 million. And so you're going to have $990,000 worth of capital gains. It's actually probably a little bit more than that. And you're like, whoa, I don't want to pay the capital gains on that. You put that into a qualified opportunity fund, and literally it's just the LLC taxed as a partnership. And you've got to file a form with the IRS to certify as a qualified opportunity fund. But then you take care of it through your own fund. You could then go and find residential deals, right? So you could find an Airbnb asset that's in Wilmore, that's an opportunity zone in Charlotte. You could buy that, you could fix it up, and then you could start renting it out as an Airbnb. And then when you go to sell it 10 years from now, you're going to pay zero capital gains and zero depreciation recapture. So it's absolutely teed up for people to do it themselves. Now, you could also invest with a fund that's out there. There's probably around 8,000 to 9,000 of them. I'm helping a group actually out of Charlotte as well that's got a Class A multifamily deal down in Charleston that's got like a 16% internal rate of return. And they're going to give you 3 times your money when you exit, and it's in an opportunity zone. It's built, it's ready to roll. And so there's deals like that are out there as well. Or you can do your own deal like we talked about.
Can you hear Angela?
No, her audio just cut off for me. I was like, oh, I hope my audio didn't cut off.
Sorry
Angela,
about that.
There you go.
How do you know what makes a good opportunity zone opportunity?
Yeah. So, what's funny is that it's basically, do you think you're going to ultimately make money on the deal? Are you going to ultimately have capital gains on the deal on the back end of it? And if you do you want to pay taxes on the growth of that? And if the answer is yes, you're going to make money, and no, I don't want to pay taxes, and it's in an opportunity zone, bam, that's a great opportunity zone deal. Now, I will caveat that inside of opportunity zones, because they wanted to encourage stuff to actually happen, they had 2 requirements: that you either buy something that's built, that's new, or if it's raw land, that you do something to the raw land, or if it's got an existing building on it, you have to substantially improve that building. And so what that means is that you have to double the basis of the value of the building. So if you're buying a derelict house where you're going to have to put a bunch of money into it, that'll probably work. if you've got a really nice condo that's already been built and there's been somebody in there renting it, then you're going to end up having to double the value of that condo, which is probably not going to pencil out. So if it's something that's really nice and that's already cash flowing, that's probably not going to be a good opportunity zone deal. But if it's something that's got value upside where you can add additional cash to it and then, derive the benefit of that, that's going to be a great opportunity zone deal.
So when these opportunity zones were being designated, they were in depressed areas in large part, or like USDA, maybe rural areas that we wanted to see growth in, that investors weren't putting their money in. What were the qualifications for a property to be designated in an OZ?
So it had to be a low income census tract according to the 2010 census, or it had to be contiguous to a low income census tract. And so in 2010, there were a lot of places, like particularly the I-85 corridor in Charlotte back in 2010. I mean, there were a lot of places that had, been really adversely impacted by the recession. And so that whole corridor is an opportunity zone because it was low income census tracts. Now, there were some that got designated based upon the fact that you have students in there. So there's an opportunity zone that's literally across the street from campus in Chapel Hill that is an opportunity zone, namely because of students that comprise the population. It made it a low income census tract. Now, there's some pending legislation to eliminate those for going forward, but they be grandfathered in. We'll see what happens within that pending legislation. But if that happens, then new zones get designated. So it's, just because it's a low income area, or you kind of perceive that it's like, oh man, that's got, some derelict houses and that's got to be an opportunity zone, doesn't necessarily mean that it got chosen by the governor. And just because it's got chosen doesn't necessarily mean that it's derelict. And so you have to go to the map in order to look at where the zones are and kind of pick and choose the ones that you really like. So I've done a number of YouTube videos on some really great zones that I've visited. There's one in Georgetown, South Carolina. There's one that's waterfront in Myrtle Beach. We just bought a boat and RV storage facility with our fund down in Port St. Joe. It's literally, you could see the beach from the drone shot that we took of the facility. So there's some really great opportunity zones out there. You just got to find them. And an easy way to do that is go to ozpros.com/map.
So can anybody participate in this, or are there certain requirements that make you more eligible than someone else, for example?
If you got a capital gain and you've got a computer and you can reach out to us, you can do an opportunity zone fund. It's literally that easy. And the great thing is, with a lot of governmental programs, you got to go and there's this lengthy application process. You got to go through all this red tape. In this one, you literally just have to do it. And then you file with your taxes, Form 8996. It's literally 4 pages. That's it. And that's how you certify that you're a qualified opportunity fund. Now, there's some nuances to that form that you better have good advisors helping you with to make sure that you do it correctly. So the great thing is you don't have to ask for permission, but because it's up to you to prove the stance that you're taking relative to the taxes that you're filing, you better make sure that you have a really good audit trail. And that's what we do. We help people to put together the documents, to set up their qualified opportunity fund, to set up their QOZB, and then to do the compliance going forward to make sure that they've got a really good audit trail to tell their story to the IRS to say, no, this is what we did. This is why we're eligible to not pay any taxes on this.
So as a realtor, if I'm working with an investor who comes to me, or we have a discussion about the opportunity to invest in opportunity zones, my best bet is to partner with a company like OZPros to help guide us through that process. Is that right? Like, I wouldn't just go on the map, look it up. I would really need to reach out to you as the expert to make sure that we're going through this process correctly and that I'm best representing my clients.
Absolutely. If you want to do it the best way, and it's really easy. So we have paved the way, and we love working with brokers whether it's buy side or sell side. And we are here to specifically make your life easier and to make you look like you are the expert. And we're here to assist. We've got all of the resources that you need. And effectively, we can make sure we can help you to structure the deal. We can help you to communicate it to your buyer, because that's going to be the person that's going to be the one that needs to set up the fund and to do the things that need to be done in order to take advantage of the Opportunity Zone program. And we can help make sure that that happens and happens correctly. So if you're going to be listing it, there's a couple of things that you can do inside of that relative to your listing documents, highlighting that it's in an opportunity zone, giving some of the base benefits of what happens because it's in an opportunity zone. And then we can also give you some pointers about how you could easily meet the requirements if you're the listing agent. Then if you're the buyer's agent, we walk you through the entire process, how to set up your fund, how to make sure that you're hitting the substantial improvement requirements, and how you're going to basically do and transact the deal. And what all brokers need to know, and this is really, really important for being able to distinguish yourself in a fairly competitive market. So as there's less supply, as there's more competition going on, as there's interest rate pressure, opportunity zones are a differentiator, and they're a way that you can increase the returns that you would normally be getting on a regular deal. And so an opportunity zone deal side by side against a regular deal is not comparable, because you're going to get generally a 3% IRR bump on an OZ deal versus the same deal that's not in an opportunity zone. And for those of us inside of real estate investing, a 3% IRR bump is real estate investing nirvana. That's incredible. It's like, what? Wait a second. Just because it's in an OZ, and I got to jump through a couple of hoops setting it up and how I structure my QOF and my LLC and that kind of thing, and I get an extra 3%? Are you kidding me?
Well, that's huge, because there's been so much competition in the Charlotte area, and I'm sure nationwide, with so many people coming in, hedge funds, those sorts of things. It's so competitive for real estate investors.
Sure. And so as a result, of exactly the things that you said, cap rates continue to compress, and it continues to get harder to get that alpha out of deals. And so this is a way that you can chase alpha.
So you sound really excited about this. How did you stumble upon the OZ concept and make this your passion?
I love that question. So I actually I built a mergers and acquisition practice that I sold because I got sick of seeing business owners leave money on the table. And so we started doing succession planning. The problem is that nobody wants to succession plan. They don't want to talk about when they're going to die or how they're going to transition out of the business. And so I was actually at a CLE at Queens here in Charlotte, and there was a gentleman from Ernst & Young who was up there talking about the Tax Cut and Jobs Act. And it was after lunch. There's like 300 lawyers in the audience, and everybody's kind of like dozing off and falling asleep. And he kind of had a monotone voice, and he's up there and he's like, and there's this little thing called opportunity zones in 3 pages of this 1,500 pages of legislation. And he generally described the program. So I ran him down in the hall afterwards, and I was like, what you described sounds like private equity in 1031 got married. And he's like, and they had a beautiful baby named Opportunity Zones. And I was like, oh. So I ran back inside and I started taking down domain names, right? I was like, all right, OZ tax advisor, whatever, right? Just like OZ stuff. Opportunity Zone this, Opportunity Zone Consultants. That was the original name of our company. And so many domains, in fact, that my assistant actually changed my GoDaddy password. But we popped up a website, and we had 150 inbound leads and $75 million worth of capital looking for deals. And I was like, wow, we're on to something. And literally, we've been doing nothing but opportunity zones ever since.
So when you go to work with somebody new, is there a particular criteria that you are looking for to say, this is a person that I want to work with, this is a good opportunity, versus this is maybe not as good a deal as something else?
So I think the key is that, and this is kind of the general, analysis, because people ask me all the time, all right, so what makes sense to jump through the hoops of an OZ deal?
Mhm.
And so I walk them through. It's not about how much gain you have right now, because you could have $5,000 worth of capital gain, and it may make sense to put that into a fund. Like if you're going to start a business, because you can start a business with literally like $5, but
Mhm.
with $5,000, that's more than enough to start a business. And it's all about the growth of what your investment is that you're going into. And so generally, it's going to cost you around, for us, we charge $10,000 for our package to set up your fund and to set up everything else. And then, you're going to have to file your tax return for 2 entities, and you're going to need some probably compliance assistance. If you were to ballpark that, let's say that it's $5,000 a year for 10 years. So you're talking about around $60,000. And if you basically take that and you divide that by what the tax rate is, right? 23.8%. Then roughly, if you're going to make around $300,000, then it's like, okay, I'm going to save that amount of money on taxes. So if it's below 300,000, you're going to have to really sharpen your pencil and be like, do I really want to fool with this? If it's above 300,000, then man, it's like, okay, this actually probably really does make sense. And so I generally tell people that I'm like, listen, if you're doing a real estate deal and you're going to hold it for more than 10 years, you should expect that you're going to at least double your money on that deal. So if you're doing a $300,000 deal, then more than likely you should be looking at, if it's in an opportunity zone, looking at how you can make it work as an opportunity zone deal. So that's kind of generally the rule of thumb.
So you said with opportunity zones, if I'm investing in that, then I have to, if it's existing property, I'm going to have to substantially improve it, double the improvements. What time frame does that need to be completed?
You have 30 months to complete the substantial improvement. So like 2.5 years.
How is that monitored? How is that?
So that's the great thing about the program, right? Is that it's not monitored at all. This is all about you keeping track of it and then having really good books and records to be able to show it in the event that you're audited. Now, we don't know if opportunity zones are going to be an audit flag, right? But they can't be a listed transaction because they were legislatively created. So you got all these different little tax vehicles and tax things that are out there, like conservation easements. Those or syndicated conservation easements became a listed transaction because it was how somebody took the code and then they came up with a creative way to deal with the code. This was legislatively created, so it can't be an audit. It can't be a listed transaction. Now, it could increase your risk of audit. And so accordingly, what I tell people is just plan on that you're going to get audited and have your stuff dialed in and where you've got it presented. And the IRS, if you present it to them in an organized fashion, they're going to be like, thank you. You're going to look through it and they're going to say, wow, this is awesome. Well done. You're good to go. It's really crazy because I heard this stat the other day, is that in a survey, most Americans would prefer to get mugged than to get audited by the IRS, which blew my mind. I'm like, what? How? Wait a second. You would prefer to be like literally in an armed situation where somebody could literally be trying to kill you over interacting with an agent of the government. That just blows my mind because IRS agents are people too. And if you are civil to them and you have your stuff together and you're organized, you're going to be good to go. And so that's what I regularly communicate with people is, hey, that's what we're here to do, is we're here to help you to make sure that you get your stuff done correctly and that you have the documentation to back it up. And then if you are, you're good.
So if you were going to make improvements on a piece of property, for example, and let's say this was my first OZ transaction and I'm not very creative, is that something that your team could help me with in coming up with the improvements so that I could then meet that criteria?
We do it all day long. So we've helped people put solar on their projects. We've helped people put green data centers into their projects, right? The key is that, you can't just spend money to spend money. You got to spend money that's ultimately going to pencil out and justify the spending of the money. And so we'll run through that, and we're pretty good at kind of back of the napkin math too, to where we can say, okay, this deal makes sense. This deal probably not so much. And so we've helped people do that analytics. That level of kind of, like in-depth deal, we do that in Ascent every Tuesday. So people ask these questions of me, kind of rapid fire, and it's awesome. I love it. And I don't know why I kind of geek out on like complex tax stuff and creative, ways to solve the problems, but I do. And so that's what we do every Tuesday.
Isn't that one of the great things about real estate is there's so many different ways to, like I said earlier, to get involved, to help people, to have an impact on the community, and you helping the investors do that. I imagine you mentioned some areas here in Charlotte, and there's so many depressed areas. It's got to be so great for some of these areas. I know there's different opinions on gentrifying areas, that sort of thing. But to be able to increase inventory in areas where it's struggling, to help with affordable housing, to make areas good, safe communities again, that's got to be such a rewarding aspect of what you're doing.
It's awesome. And what's really awesome is when you really think about, so you can see the tangible effect, and you can see it in the studies that have been done as well, that home values inside of opportunity zones versus tracts that were similarly situated that didn't get picked as opportunity zones have increased substantially over the non-OZ areas. And so that just goes to show that the program is working. The other thing is that, that's the stuff that we can see and that we can measure. There's also an incalculable amount of positive economic impact that happens that's in, people kind of poo-poo trickle-down economics, but I had an econ professor that boiled it down for me like this. He said, listen, you go into a town and there's a hotel, there's a motel there it looks okay, but you're not real sure. You're like, it could go either way, right? Relative to the rooms. So you go in and you talk to the motel owner, you say, hey, listen, I want to rent one of your rooms, but I want to see it first. The motel owner's like, hey, listen, man, I can't let you see your room because I don't know if you're going to run in there and take a shower while I'm letting you see the room. And so he says, the rooms are $100, pay for a room, go up and look at it. And then if you're not interested and you come back here in an hour and you haven't messed up the room, he said, I'll give you your $100 back. Okay, that's fair. I give him $100 and I walk up to see the room. And I walk up there, and as I'm on the stairs on the way up, the guy goes, man, I owe the bakery guy $100 for all those donuts that I bought last week. And he goes over to the baker and he goes, hey, here's that $100 I owe you. The baker goes, man, I owe the shoe repair guy $100 for, the shoe repairs that he did for me. And so he goes and he pays the shoe repair guy. Shoe repair guy goes to the dry cleaner and he says, hey, I owe you $100 for all the dry cleaning I've done. Dry cleaner guy goes, man, I got $100 now. He goes over to the motel guy and he goes, hey, thanks for hooking me up with my girlfriend the other day, right, with a room. And so here's your $100 back. And so the motel guy gets his $100 back as I'm coming down the stairs because the room is like, whoa, I'm not staying there, right? And so as I come up to him, I'm like, hey, man, listen, I appreciate it, but I think I'm going to go. I'm probably going to stay somewhere else. Can I have my $100 back? He gives me my $100 back. How much economic impact has just happened? $400, right? Because I put in $100 and I ultimately didn't even put in $100, but it went around and it created $400 of economic impact in that town. And that's what opportunity zones have done. They've brought in new capital that normally would not have otherwise come into that community. And it's resulted in that kind of economic traction inside of these areas. And it's resulting in job creation. It's resulting in things getting done. It's resulting in deals coming to areas that otherwise would not have gotten it. And the greatest thing that I've seen happen as a result of opportunity zones is that it's created hope. And there is no price that you could put on that. And so you can tell how excited I am about it. And that's the reason why, is because I've seen it have positive impact. And that's my superpower and my passion in life, is I want to see things be left better than they were when I interacted with them. And so that's what's happening with opportunity zones.
You mentioned a couple of minutes ago about how one area is developed and it does better than another area that was not picked. What is the criteria for an area being picked as an opportunity zone?
So once again, it had to be a low income census tract or contiguous to one, and it had to be selected by the governors. Now, it was interesting because every governor had their own process for how they did it. And the good news is that I don't think that a whole lot of people knew about it. And so there wasn't any kind of like shady kind of back office, money and bag kind of thing that was happening. I think they really tried to dial it in to say, okay, where do we want the growth? What are the areas where we really need to see this happen? Where are the corridors that could utilize this? And so then they selected those, and all of the opportunity zones have already been chosen. Now, if the legislation that's pending goes through, it could grandfather some of those in, make it so that they can't get future investment. And then those ones that got deselected could be replaced by the governors. And so if that happens, then we could see some new opportunity zones. Otherwise, unless some legislation occurs, some new legislation like that occurs, the opportunity zones are what they are, and they're on the map at ozpros.com/map.
And
So
are they limited? I'm sorry.
go ahead. No, go ahead, Angela. Go ahead.
Are they limited then only by the opportunity zones that are on the map? There are not going to be any more unless something changes?
That's correct. Which is a bummer.
So
And
that
I
is
want
a
to see
bummer.
some legislation. So all of us should be talking to our congressmen about, hey, listen, let's get some legislation. This $150 billion. Let's do this, and let's get some new zones. Let's get some new activity. And I think that this can be, and I think that we'll see that going forward, that this is going to be a really powerful program that is utilized. And hopefully we see, an evolution of the legislation as well, to where it's not just capital gains money that can come in, but that it's any kind of money. And then that we see some other kind of guardrails put on it relative to how you actually measure the impact. And then it's real deals that are going to have some really positive effect, not just trickle down economics like I talked about, which are powerful in and of themselves, but to where there's actually some really positive, tangible effect on the folks that are in that opportunity zone as well. And that's certainly all of the projects that we're doing. We're encouraging people to say, hey, listen, what true positive impact are you having on the folks that you're interacting with and the zone that you're doing this deal in?
Well, I think we're seeing a real shift in real estate right now. Younger people not buying, renting, interest rates, prices. There's a shift in the mindset of real estate, and some out of the box thinking. We had a guest on a couple of months ago out in California. They've got legislation where people can now sell a portion of their backyard. And people can build sort of smaller but like kind properties in the backyard. There's some out of the box thinking. So I think
Sure.
as programs like yours or companies like yours who are able to show positive results, we're going to see more and more of that, and see it be living policy that can adapt to the changes in the city.
Let's hope.
So hopefully we'll see that. And so like one change that we're seeing in the Charlotte areas are a lot of hotels that over the years don't really serve the need of the coliseums that had been there, and they've turned into derelict properties. And so investors are coming in and flipping those into affordable housing units. Are you seeing some of that with opportunity zones, or do you guys have any of those kinds of properties that you're seeing?
Unquestionably. So we got a ton of, it's interesting because LIHTC, low-income housing tax credits are a whole nother, governmental incentive, and you can stack the two, but it's a little bit complicated about all of the rules associated with a LIHTC deal and how you intersperse that and how you weave that into an opportunity zone deal. And so as a result, we're seeing a bunch of just kind of naturally occurring workforce housing and naturally occurring affordable housing deals that are popping up. And that's in the form of kind of, hotel, conversions like you're talking about. It's also, we've seen a bunch of kind of prop tech companies that have actually launched as OZ businesses, and then they're utilizing the prop tech in order to get digitally printed houses out there. There's a concrete house manufacturing company that went into the opportunity zone up in Bluefield, Virginia, or West Virginia, because they were in an opportunity zone and they were able to utilize that to juice the return for their investors. They're then putting those houses into opportunity zones across the US. So absolutely, we've seen that happen. And we've seen people get really creative inside of that. One of the coolest impact projects that I've had the fortunate opportunity to be associated with and to work on is it's an autism community that they're putting on a kind of a higher end lakefront place that got taken out by the recession, and it still hasn't come back. But they're going to go back in there, and they're going to, instead of just dropping in these massive houses, they're going to have an element of that. But then they're going to they're going to build this community that specifically serves autistic adults, that will have services, and then they're going to have a working farm there as well. And they'll be able to work in the farm. They'll be able to kind of interact with the community. And so that deal wouldn't get done, but for it being in an opportunity zone. So
we've got autism in our family, very close in our family. So we've been following that, and it is great to see improvements like that happening. I didn't know that it was an opportunity zone property, but yeah, that's fantastic.
Wow. Jimmy Atkinson says, when do you think such OZ renewal legislation might get enacted? Any chance it might be part of the $78 billion tax deal that's been in the news this week? Thank you, Jimmy, for the question.
Yeah, appreciate that, Jimmy. So I don't know about snowballs in Hades, but I think that they might have a better chance than than that tax legislation going through in the first place, but let alone us being able to potentially tack it on. I say it kind of tongue in cheek. It would be awesome to see if there's a way that could possibly happen. I'm not real bullish on that coming through. Be fantastic if it did. It would be fantastic if that legislation are able to go through, and it'd be really awesome if we're able to tack it on. So hopefully, I don't know, maybe some legislators are listening out there, and that it could actually get done. Unfortunately, the cards are not usually aligned for deals in legislation that comes through in an election year. But I don't know, maybe Congress is going to change that this year, which would be cool if they did.
If you're going to say something to Congress or something to legislation to get something enacted, what would you say and who would you contact?
Well, so we actually have we put together a legislative advocacy pack, and we've got that, and it's available at inside of OzWorks Group, to where folks can send letters to their congressmen, to their senators. The person that probably needs to be contacted the most is Ron Wyden out of Oregon. And he has been I don't want to say he's been an enemy of it, but he's definitely been he's looked at it, and he's looked at it really hard. And so I'd love to see Ron working with other the legislators to put the guardrails in it that he wants to see, and us being able to come up with version 2.0 of this legislation. And so certainly I think that the Republicans are on board. And so it's Democratic senators are the ones that really need to get contacted to say, hey, this is actually working, and this is actually making a difference. And so, stories about that, stories about deals that are getting done, right? The autism community that's in Alabama, right? That's a great example of it. And it's really weird how this has become, when it got enacted and when it got publicized, because it happened under Trump, it became this kind of politically divisive, like topic. And I got to hand it to Trump that he did a great job of taking credit for the legislation. But at the end of the day, this legislation was created during the Clinton era, and it just couldn't get passed. And so ultimately it got passed. And the way it got passed was a conversation between Donald Trump and I can't believe his name's escaping me right now, but the senator from South Carolina that after Charlottesville, Trump came to him and said, "Hey, listen, Tim Scott." And he said, "Tim, what can I do relative to, right, like what's happening here?" And Tim said, "There's this piece of legislation called Opportunity Zones. Get that through in this Tax Cut and Jobs Act, and that's going to be great for lower income areas." And so he did, and then he did a great job of capitalizing on that in the news. And so then it became this like polarization thing where everybody's like, "Oh," and because they kind of knocked the guardrails off. They said, "Hey, listen, let's take out the requirements that you got to go through CDFI, or that you got to get permission, or that it's got to be government mandated, and let's make it so that it's easy to do and it's easy to accomplish." And as a result, there were deals that were going to get done anyhow, and that got publicized that are opportunity zone deals, and it's just making the rich richer. And certainly that is the case. But when you look at what the net positive benefit of the program is, it is, you cannot deny that this has actually moved the needle. And so, and unfortunately, anything that can get politicized today is going to get politicized. But that's what is necessary, is for us that are practical, that are rational, to be able to come together and to say, listen, this should not be politicized. This should be something that everybody's in favor of, because it is literally making a difference. It's making a positive impact. So let's all get behind it, and then let's make it better. Let's work together to make it better.
So the pushback is in large part that it's protecting taxes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is the tax benefit. So like maybe an incentive, one of those guardrails, maybe some incentive could be given to, like I know in Charlotte, there's food deserts where we don't have, grocery stores serving some of these underserved communities. So like incentives to bring some of that commerce into these areas. Is that
what I'd love to see? Is I'd love to see anything where there's a government program already in place, that if it happens in an opportunity zone, that you could use non-capital gains money to fund it. And then that would, I think, be an easy way to kind of morph the program and to be able to grab additional money that's out there. I'd also love to see it where it gets extended out. If we're able to extend it, and or to your point, to provide additional incentives inside of that, that would be fantastic. And then I think that, that they've already kind of done this inside of the existing legislation, where they're like, okay, some of these opportunity zones that were like contiguous census tracts, or because they had, students, anything that's already grown above the 130% of median adjusted gross income, anything like that gets grandfathered in. And now we're able to get new zones that actually need the money, and they're not, places where real estate development was going to happen anyhow. And so there's also legislation that's pending relative to rural opportunity zones. They create a whole kind of additional, extra benefit for stuff that's happening in rural zones, because most of the money that came into opportunity zone funds were going into projects that were in urban areas as opposed to rural areas. So to your point, if you can add some additional incentive for food deserts, for agricultural projects that are going to help food production, or that are going to serve some kind of public priority, I think that those should get additional incentives on top of what's there.
Jake asks a good question. He says, what kind of real estate investments qualify for opportunity zone benefits? Just new constructions, or do renovations also qualify? Great question, Jake. Thank you.
That's a great question, Jake. And the answer is both. So if you buy something, this is kind of cool. If you're able to find something that's pre-certificate of occupancy, so it's basically before it's been rented, then you can purchase that and you can step into it and you can immediately start renting it out, and that's going to qualify.
Mm.
Otherwise, you have to hit that substantial improvement requirement that we talked about before. And so a renovation would definitely, well, usually is going to qualify for that, because as you're renovating, it depends on what kind of renovation it is. If you're just putting some, paint and stuff on it, maybe not. But if you got to put in a new kitchen and a couple bathrooms, then more than likely you're probably going to hit that substantial improvement threshold. That's the key, though, is that it has to be original use or substantially improved.
So, as a real estate professional, what are my best steps to become proficient in this, to be able to best serve clients who are investors, to guide them through this process? How do I educate myself, stay on top of the education? How would you advise me as a realtor and all the other realtors out there listening?
Sure. So the first thing to do is to take that survey, and you go to OZPros.com, and we've got it set up so that you can in 3 minutes get your own personalized roadmap. That's at OZPros.com/realty success. And in 3 minutes, that's going to give you there we go. Look at that. And that's going to give you some guidelines. If you want to then take the next step, and you want to be able to increase your knowledge, you want to pick up additional information, OzWorks Group is a free resource to be able to do that. If you think you're ready to go ahead and get your funds started and you want to rock and roll, at OZPros.com, that's what we do. And we're happy to set a specific individual strategy call. We've got discounted ones at that same web address. And then, or you can join OZ Ascent, which is our weekly mastermind, where literally you could get a PhD in opportunity zones in, I think, probably shorter than anywhere else you could find. So those would be next steps. And we've got resources. We're here to assist. We're here to help. This is what we love to do. And we're looking forward to helping people on their opportunity zone journey.
When we're in an era right now of low inventory and high interest rates, is this a good time to be pursuing opportunity zones?
Well, you just described it, right? So anytime you've got, it's like the perfect storm, low inventory and rising interest rates. And so it's just kind of this really interesting dynamic that's out there that makes deals tough to get done. And so if you've got something that can help you in that deal, why would you not pull that out? And an opportunity zone is exactly that. It's a tax break to encourage something to happen inside of these zones. And so it, by very definition, is going to be a differentiator as it relates to just a standard deal. Like I said, it's a 3% bump on internal rate of return. Now, and so if you've got a significant deal that's going to make a ton of money, that could actually be even more. And so I think that unequivocally, it becomes a tool that you can use in order to try to mitigate, the toughness and the challenges associated with those environments.
It's going to be so interesting to see the impact that this has on communities who are really struggling with. We were talking earlier about in the North Carolina area, so many people have moved here from the Northeast, and it's made it really tough for first-time home buyers because it's driven our prices up, the interest rates going up. So it's great to see programs like this that are creating new opportunities. It's really going to be fascinating to see the impact that it's had on areas of our city that are struggling.
Yeah, it will benefit. So I don't necessarily know that it's going to help first-time home buyers that are trying to get a deal, right? Because
you talk about trickle down, but if I've got an investor who can invest in this opportunity zone property that my first-time home buyer doesn't necessarily want to live in that opportunity zone, so it opens up this opportunity because he's going to go there or she's going to go there to protect their capital gains. So I think it's going to kind of help level that playing field. It's going to give opportunities to investors that is going to make traditional home buying maybe a little less competitive.
Yeah. Well, hopefully. And, I also think that, once that person buys the house that's in the opportunity zone and they get it renovated and then they make it available to rent, bam, now we've got additional supply relative to, even if it's a rental, we've got additional supply on the market, which we are in drastic need of, particularly in Charlotte and in the areas that are experiencing high growth. And so, I think that that's a big one too.
Yeah.
So tell me about the opportunity, because if you got to hang on to it for 10 years in order to get your tax benefit, like you said, in Airbnb, are you able then to rent it out and make some money off of the process during the period of the 10 years when you cannot sell that?
Yeah, absolutely. You actually have to. So by very definition, the property has to be in the qualified opportunity zone business, has to be a trade or business. So
Okay.
it can't be a second home, and it can't be your first home. And that's one of the things that you got to be really careful of. So for all of this is a little tip and a pointer for any of your folks that are contemplating a deal on a residential property. Make sure that your buyer does not buy it in their individual names, because if they do, and then they're like, oh no, I'll just quit claim it to my qualified opportunity zone business later. Well, no, you can't do that, because it's got to be purchased after 2017 from an unrelated party. And if you're selling it from yourself to your QOZB, that's going to make it so that that you've just disqualified that asset. So it's really important that you don't buy it in your individual name, and that you do buy it in a qualified opportunity zone business, which is basically literally just an LLC. And for folks that buy it in an LLC and then they come and talk to us, we're like, hey, we can fix that. And we make it a QOZB after the fact that they've bought it. And so you, by very definition, have to rent it. So you're going to be receiving some kind of income on it during the 10 years. And then you're going to utilize cost segregation studies to get bonus depreciation, and or just do your normal straight line depreciation to offset that income that's going to be coming in off the property. And then when you go to sell it, you're not going to pay any capital gains on the growth and on the appreciation. And you're also not going to pay any depreciation recapture. That's the special sauce.
And that's why realtors need to work with you and OZPros to make sure that we are guiding our investors appropriately and making sure that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, and that they get the full benefit of the program.
Got to cross those I's and dot those T's.
Those T's. Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's been great information. And what you said earlier, I love what you said earlier, that it brings so much hope to communities where we need affordable housing needs met. We need rental properties. We need growth. We need to address these depressed areas. So it's great to see what you're doing, and it is fantastic to see the passion that you bring to it.
Well,
So
I want to also say thank you for offsetting the fear that comes along with an IRS audit as well.
Don't fear the IRS. They put their pants on one leg at a time, just like us. They may or may not carry guns, but anyhow, they're people too, and it's
just doing a job.
Yeah, exactly. They're doing their job, and you just need, if you've got your stuff squared away and you're kind and you're respectful of them, they're going to work with you.
Absolutely. Well, if you can tell everybody again where to go and find the assessment, and how people can find you to learn more about this opportunity.
Absolutely. It's ozpros.com/realty success. And on that, we've got the assessment, and then we've also got discounted strategy call links if somebody wants to get on the phone directly with either myself or somebody on my team. And we're super excited about being able to help all of your listeners, and to be a differentiator for them as they are entering into a competitive environment.
Well, thanks. We really appreciate that. And Angela, if you can tell everybody where they can find you.
You can find me at Ask Angela Brown on all of the social medias, and I'm the CEO of Savvy Cleaner. We train house cleaners and maids.
And I'm Brooke Bryant. You can find me on all the social media platforms at Ask Brooke Bryant. Thanks everybody for joining us today. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments. We'll be glad to answer them. Reach out to Ashley so he can help us answer them correctly. And we'll see everybody next time. Thank you so much.
Cheers,
Bye.
guys.